Hi, I'm Toby Cashman, and I will be discussing Calling by Your Name and a review for the movie titled Calling by Your Name Probably Won't Win Best Picture, and here's why. And this is a Vox review by Alyssa Wilkinson, Caroline Fromke, and Alex Santos. So what's very interesting is essentially the review is an incorrect prediction that while the movie is very good on its own, it likely won't win the Oscars. And it's interesting because they were disproven that this was written before the Oscars, and they were essentially criticizing the Oscars for not accepting their diversity and as well as the Moonlight controversy, how there was a lot of issues in the past with accepting queer film and possible repeats, and there was just enough backlash around the movie regarding the marketing, how the movie was very artistic but almost tame in a way that was very broadly accessible, and as well as the main two actors were trying to market this away from queerness and more so as a coming of age, which might have made it more accessible, but it also prohibited the movie from being seen as queer, making it more of a broad audience away from just being in the niche of queer artistic film. However, what's interesting is this ended up working backwards, where the artistic decisions were very well made and very well crafted. However, this actually made it more accessible for people to understand what was going on. They didn't need a very complex understanding, and this made it very popular of a film, which makes it very easy for people to accept as a winner, as well as the very messy victory for Moonlight essentially laid the groundwork for queer victory. While it was very frustrating what Moonlight as the movie had to go through, essentially it allowed there to be a space for queerness to win. And unlike Moonlight, the movie does have in favor the fact that it is a European setting with mostly white characters. And I say white carefully because the characters are Jewish, and that does get a bit complicated throughout history. However, visibly, I do think that the Academy Awards, they are very biased regarding what they are visually seeing. And unfortunately, that does mean that they will be biased towards Calling by Your Name instead of Moonlight regarding a queer coming of age film. As well as the marketing away from queerness probably helped the Academy too, as seeing it as not too ambitious, but rather more palatable to them. There's a lot of issues that the Academy still has regarding diversity, and there's a long way to go. However, it's very interesting that the steps taken towards pushing it away from diversity almost made it easier for people to accept it in the long run. As well as I want to highlight this one quote. So many movies starring LGBTQ plus characters end up in heartbreak. It feels great to have more movie options that don't come with any stakes beyond sometimes you fall in love and sometimes it hurts. This is very interesting because as we'll explore further, there's essentially no external threats towards their queerness. The only stakes are internal and come from their own issues and challenges that they have to overcome themselves. No one in their lives is telling them it's wrong to be queer. Elio is accepted. The main problem is that he's young and has to figure out who he is. And it's a very interesting discussion because it's a review written by three people that essentially it's a discussion about quality versus Academy actions. They all agree that the movie was really well made and pointed out a lot of incredible moments and emotional highs, as well as being a tragic ending without external punishment. It is sad without there being homophobia, and it shows that there is a diversity of stories. There's no one perfect way to tell a queer story, but rather a variety of ways, and this is one that is well done. As well as because of the Moonlight controversy, there's a lot of criticism against the Oscars. And although this is a focus on Calling by Your Name, it is interesting that they brought up Moonlight a lot in the review. And this is interesting because they're not necessarily asking if the movie is deserving of an award. They're actually arguing that it is deserving of an award, but rather, is the world ready to reward this kind of movie? Is the world ready to accept that a queer film like this can accept an Oscar? So this is a discussion that's not born out of dislike towards the movie. In fact, they really love the movie, but rather it's born out of queer frustration from seeing things repeat over and over again, that essentially they should have been right that from pattern recognition, and yet it's wonderful that they were wrong. In conclusion, this is a review that had very good reasons for the predictions, but those same reasons are why they were wrong, and that is a beautiful thing, that sometimes it's good to be wrong about these sorts of things. We want to see queer victories like this. We want to see queer film win awards and gain such good positive recognition. There's very valid critique specifically around pushing the movie away from queerness, considering the story would probably not exist if it weren't for the two characters' main queerness. It was still challenged in many ways, making this seem just ambitious enough for the Academy, but not too much so that it wouldn't win. So thank you so much for joining me. I will link the review down below, and I hope you enjoyed.